You are now watching a new episode of The Guru's Perspective. Welcome to a new episode of The Guru's Perspective. And yes, it's me. I'm your host, the Guru himself. I want to talk about some things that happened and materialized over the weekend in the NCAA football, and I want to talk about what happened in the NFL. Really, a lot of good games. That's why I like the sport itself. To really say that any given Sunday definitely hits different, but then now it's like you have any given Saturday or any given Sunday. Fun fact, I just want to get through it right quick. I was talking to my sister just recently, my sister Harriet, and we were talking. I told her, yeah, I never underestimate a team. And I just feel like any team on any given day, on any given Sunday, perhaps can win a game. So I never look past competition or don't think a team that I'm cheering for is better or more superior than any team because this weekend showed that too as well. I gave her the whole, Al Pacino speech, which I think is still one of the best speeches, and I believe that's one of the best football movies besides the program to me in all sports. That's just my opinion. All right, we're moving on. And I want to talk about some things that happened in the college football over the weekend. Some really good things to me. I was excited. I'm going to be honest to you because I love upsets and I just love good, hard, contested games. I want to start off with my Michigan Wolverines. If you ain't peep it out, that's my background in the back. I thought that was pretty cool, to get this generated before I started the show today. But yes, I want to talk about that game because of the fact is we had a little struggles at first with Wisconsin, but I never doubt the Wisconsin team and I never look past them. I think we're a little better than them as far as, a team offensively and defensively, but you still can't underestimate them. If we made any mistakes or if Bryce Underwood didn't play clean or we had any fumbles or any miscues, this game would have been closer than what I actually imagined. The final score was 24-10. Wisconsin's a very disciplined team. I always respected them because they're always a really good, sound, disciplined team. And that being said, I like the game all in all because I feel like Michigan played good and the defense of Wisconsin, was really good. The offense was kind of stagnant, but still, I still feel like Bryce Underwood had a good performance. He had 270 yards, 19 to 28, and a touchdown. The person I feel like was the star of the game was Justice Haynes, man. That guy's been really running his tail off, and he looked good in this game. He had 117 yards, 19 carries, and 2 touchdowns. He really carried the load for the team. And I definitely like Donovan McCulley as well, the wide receiver. He looked pretty sharp in the game, 112 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown. We're going to have more stiff competition, but that was a good test because I still feel like, regardless of what people may think of Wisconsin, they're a really sound, disciplined team. And I just want us to continue to excel and play well until we have to play that team from down south soon. Respect to my man Z Buck and anybody else who hate that team. I'm not going to say the name today. And I want to move on to some of the good games as far as some of the upsets that I didn't see coming this week or last week, Saturday. Number 7, Penn State versus UCLA. That really surprised me because I really thought that this would be one that Penn State would just go into and dominate. Definitely after having an emotional loss like they did just recently to Oregon. I was really shocked to see what materialized in this game. What I looked at is just a really shocker to me. I wasn't expecting this, but then at the end of the day, like I said, it's any given Saturday or any given Sunday. Saturday meaning NCAA games. Drew Aller had a okay game. He had 200 yards, 19 to 26, and he had 2 scores. And he scrambled, had 78 yards on 11 carries. Just wasn't as good of a game as I thought that he would have, especially after a lackluster game that they had. They lost in 2 overtimes, but still, when it comes to them beating the bigger name teams or the higher ranked teams, they always fall short. I think they're 0-6 right now against ranked competition under James Franklin. So that's not looking good. And we will definitely get off more into him, during this, whole conversation as well. The kid, Nico Emma Emanueva, Emanueva. I don't want to really butcher his name, but the young man who had the whole incident happen when he was at Tennessee. He said that they was going to negotiate a deal for him to where he get a certain amount of money. They didn't give it to him, and he wanted more. I believe. I believe that they were going to give him 12 million for the 4 years, and he wanted 18 million. He ended up leaving and he went to UCLA where he thought, okay, my development and everything would be better here at this team. And this is where I want to go. So when he did that, he ended up leaving Tennessee. It was a lot of controversy because they were saying that he left money on the table, or they were saying that he was supposed to got money that he never received. And I believe Tennessee wasn't buying that and said, goodbye, Nico. You can hit the bricks. But that being said, he had a really good game. Nico had 166 yards, 17 to 24, and 2 touchdowns. I still feel like Drew Aller had a more sharp game and more complete game as far as the passing. But when it came to the running yards, oh my God, he was all the offense. He had 166 yards to the air with 2 touchdowns. And Nico Weva had 16 carries for 3 touchdowns and 128 yards on the ground. So he was pretty dominant in the game. The shocker of the whole thing is that number 7 Penn State fell short in this game. And it was very much a lackluster performance. I didn't expect for them to have a stinker like this against UCLA. I thought they'll come out, be more highly motivated, knowing that they got a loss under their belt and it's time to buckle up so they can still have some type of playoff rank. That didn't happen. That final score was 42 to 37. And then, the whole James Franklin, fire James Franklin chance started to materialize. And it's not really looking too good for him right now. Like people like him, Brian Kelly, and even right now in winning efforts, Kayla DeBoer right now in Alabama, it's like they're waiting for something bad to happen, really say off with his head. So it's a lot of people who are going to be in a hot seat. And I'd be surprised this year if a lot of these coaches leave, especially if their team's not playing well, and to be able to still keep a job under belt. I want to move on to and talk about another coach who I definitely feel like is in a hot seat, and his seat is hot right now. And that's Steve Sarkisian. I still feel like they're going to give him a little wiggle room because of who he is and the success that he had. But yeah, that game with Florida and Texas was really a crazy game. I definitely didn't expect them to come out and stink it up too and have a lackluster performance on this end. That really shocked me as well in this whole situation because you always think that Archie Manning would be a better player than what he was. And I still feel like a lot of people are putting too much pressure on him. He's still a kid. I don't want to downgrade. I don't want to dog out or mistreat or say anything crazy about these young men because I'm out here. I can't do any of that stuff. I don't have the talent that they do, and that's why they're doing it, and that's why I'm watching on TV. That's just the bottom line. Got to give respect to those kids. He had 263 yards, 16 to 29. He had 2 touchdowns, but the 2 picks were costly in this game as well. And they just looked very stagnant and looked lost. I thought that would have been from the other quarterback from Florida. Florida always had a phenomenal defense, and that's what's usually been carrying in them and making the games closer than what they are or supposed to be. Him having 5 interceptions in the game definitely didn't help them. And DJ Lagway, when it comes to quarterbacking and execution, he's usually the downfall or some of the main reasons they lost because you couldn't blame it on that stout defense. I believe that if he can play like he did, DJ Lagway, speaking of, in this game, like that the rest of the season, the floor is going to be somebody to really be a team to be reckoned with. The problem is right now they're 2-3. I don't know if that's enough that'll get them in. He had 298 yards, 21 of 28, 2 touchdowns, and he had a pick on the day. But still, I still feel like he played phenomenal. And Jaden Bogue had 107 yards, 27 carries, and a touchdown. And Dallas Wilson, the wide receiver, he had 6 receptions for 111 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns as well. So they balled out this game. I was really good, and I was happy to see it because most of these games, I really felt like, man, I don't know if I want to sit here and watch these games over the weekend because I didn't think they were going to be good. But then that was back to back upsets that I explained right now. And that final score was 29-21. It's sad too because there's so much pressure on Archie Manning, definitely from his last name and the stature and what that name Manning bring to NCAA football. But I still feel like he's young and he just needed time to continue to develop. This is definitely going to build character right now with him. I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the Iowa State versus Cincinnati game as well. That was another upset. I wasn't really expecting this, but I didn't really think Iowa State was really that good anyway. No disrespect. I thought that they were okay, but they just haven't bumped into a team to where that'll give them challenges. And at the same time, too, sometimes when you have like those division games, you could throw all that stuff out the window because, when you have division games, it's like the competition seems like it goes up. Everybody rises to the competition. I don't care how bad your record is. You could throw that out the window when it comes to the whole competition of the rivalry game. I want to talk about this game with Iowa State and Cincinnati too as well. I was disappointed because I really like Rocco Beck, and I think that he was one of my candidates right now for being one of the best when it came to the Heisman Trophy candidates. But I don't think that's going to be the case right now. And then with Cincinnati, Brandon Sorsby had a pretty good game as well. It was some good quarterback competition, but then I still feel like Rocco Beck had a better game. Rocco Beck had 314 passing yards, 30 of 48, and 2 scores. And then with the kid on the Cincinnati side, Brendan Sorsby, he had 214 yards, 13 of 25, and he had 2 touchdowns as well. The difference maker to me was Evan Pryor, the running back. He looked pretty consistent. On 10 carries, he had 111 yards and 2 scores. I did like what I seen in Breck Kilson, too, as well, the wide receiver over with Iowa State. He had a pretty good game, 105 yards, 8 receptions in the score. Funny thing is, when it came to this game, though, it was just better execution on Cincinnati's end. Cincinnati wasn't a bad team, too. They're 4-1 right now against the 5-1 Iowa State team, because they were 5-0 until they lost that game. That 38-30 score just let me know, like I said, when it comes to competition, especially when you're playing competition right now, going into a rivalry game, you could just throw the records out the window. And another good game I want to talk about, because it wasn't really a lot of good games that I can really dissect and talk about and really get deep into when it came to college this week. It was a kind of a rough week when it came to college. Not a lot of top 10 teams were playing or even top 25 teams playing. But I did enjoy the Alabama and Vanderbilt game. Vanderbilt definitely showed that they belong. They're still a good team despite the losing effort. I definitely like Diego Pavia. I feel like Diego Pavia was really good in this game. He had 198 yards, 21 to 35. He had a touchdown and he had a pick on the day. And then Cedric Alexander, the running back, looked serviceable. He had 4 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. That was one of the big breaks in the game that kind of caught Alabama off guard, hit him with a haymaker with that run. But I've been seeing a lot of improvement, and I hope that I don't jinx the Crimson Tide organization right now. But Caleb DeBoer has been definitely making those guys believe. They're under his system right now. They have the offensive coordinator who's been clicking with Ty Simpson, and that guy's been the truth as of lately. After that hiccup with Florida State, he's been playing very consistent right now. And Ty Simpson had 340 yards, 23 of 31, 2 touchdowns, and he had a pick on the game as well. But Jam Miller, That was the piece that was missing in that Florida State game, but he looked really sharp in this game. 136 yards, 22 carries on, and he had a touchdown as well. And Ryan Williams looked good, 6 receptions, 98 yards, and he had a score. He's been having problems catching the ball as of late, but I feel like when they came into this game, it was like a sense of urgency because they lost to Vanderbilt last year. They was embarrassed by Vanderbilt because that was a loss that they didn't expect to have. And that's what put Alabama in doom the whole season after that game. I believe that was one of the first games that was played of the season. But now you have Ty Simpson playing high caliber MVP like or Heisman caliber football. I believe that put everything in perspective right now with Alabama. It was the Teller 2 tapes again. I believe it was good adjustments in the second half, because at the beginning it was 14 and Alabama scored, and then because it was 7, then Alabama scored, then they scored 14 with the haymaker from the running back, and then Alabama scored late before the half. That second half changed everything because in that second half, Vanderbilt didn't score. It was a lot of good, strong, stout defense on Alabama's behalf, something I haven't seen in quite a while. And they shut down Vanderbilt. They didn't score a touchdown in that second half. And it was just like a lot of good takeaways and stops from Alabama in their defense. And Ty Simpson just kept the pedal to the metal. So congratulations to Alabama. You still got some competition coming up because I know you got to play Missouri, and I will be definitely giving my predictions on that as well. I want to talk about the great game too. And the competition was really, good in this game right here. I enjoyed it because this was another top team between top 25. And I want to go into it right now. One of the bigger rivalries in the ACC as well. Miami versus Florida State. Florida State had the one loss on their record, and that was to Virginia on that Friday when both teams, Virginia and Virginia won against Florida State, and TCU went down as well. But yeah, you had two ranked teams go down on a Friday before the Saturday games even began. So that definitely made that week exciting. Carson Beck really stepped up, man. I think that was the best decision to make, to say, I'm not going to the pros, but I'm not staying over there with Georgia. I'm going to go somewhere else. And him going to Miami, I believe, gave Miami a good identity, and it gave them a solid quarterback for them to have a championship run. Yes, I said it because I feel like the U is all the way back. Some people believe that they're the best team right now in the country. Carson Beck had 241 yards, 20 of 27 passing, and 4 touchdowns. He was clean on the game. And then the wide receiver looked pretty sharp too, Malachi Tony. Him and Michael Irvin got a good relationship. He had 107 yards on 7 receptions, and he had 2 scores as well. Tony Castellanos didn't really look bad, What did look bad was some of those costly picks that he threw. It seemed like he was trying to go for too much and swing for the fences. And a few times when he did that, they were double covered his receivers down the field, and that's what got those picks, those costly picks at that. He had 272 yards, 25 of 45, a little too much passing for me, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He had 57 yards on 16 carries as well. But that final score, I still feel like it didn't justify the dominance of what the U did. I felt like in this case, Florida State got a couple of garbage points at the end, but I believe the contest was already over. And that final score was the 5-0 Miami team, ranked number 3 in the nation, now number 2, versus number 18 Florida State. I believe they dropped to 25, if I'm not mistaken now. And it was 28-22. That was the final score going into, the NCAA. Okay, now that I finished talking about that, I want to go into some of the other things that's going on right now. And I want to talk about the pro end of things. I want to get into my pro format and talk about what happened in the NFL. And I'm going to give my predictions for both as well. I want to start off with the Thursday game. The Thursday game was actually pretty good, better than what I expected. you get surprises a lot. And when I seen this week 5 matchup, it really surprised me because the 49ers versus the Rams, the Rams seem like they usually have their number. Not in this case right here. I like to give credit where credit is due. It's due right now to Mac Jones. And it's a lot of controversy, and a lot of people are talking the talking heads saying that San Francisco probably would have never been in a situation with Trey Lance in the first place if they would have chose Mac Jones in the draft. And that's been the speculations and things going on right now because how well he's been playing. He's 3-0 right now with San Francisco, and he's been looking pretty sharp as well. Mac Jones had 342 yards, 33 of 49, and he had 2 scores on the day. Besides that, it wasn't really too much that was going on. Christian McCaffrey, if you want to throw him in, he had 22 carries for 57 yards, but it wasn't really too much of a ground game. Calvin Williams was the same way. He had 14 carries for 65 yards, so it wasn't really a lot going on. I did like the performance, even though he didn't score a touchdown, of Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones used to play for the New England Patriots. Things didn't really work out as planned, over there. I don't feel like Mac Jones got a fair share, or got a fair deal over there, especially when Josh McDaniels left. And he went on and he went over to the Raiders. So, yeah, it was a lot of things that happened in that organization. And it was good to see them perform as well as they did in this game. Kendrick Bourne had 10 receptions for 142 yards. And if it wasn't for him and his valid effort, I think that San Francisco may have came up short because the game was too close for comfort. That final score was San Francisco 26 and the Los Angeles Rams 23. Okay, I want to talk about this game. I know it was a later game, but I still want to talk about it to get it out the way. Cincinnati Bengals versus my Detroit Lions. This game got to the point where it was getting a little too close for comfort. We was up at one point, like in the third, going into the fourth, 28-3. Then they scored a touchdown. I said, okay, it's nothing really to worry about. But what happened was kind of alarming to me. But then we have too many people are getting injured right now. And that cornerback play has been bothering us, unfortunately. At this point, Tyrion Arnold hurt his shoulder. And when he hurt his shoulder, that's when I believe a lot of big plays was happening, despite what people feel like with Kendrick Bourne. And they say, oh, man, I mean, not Kendrick Bourne. I'm sorry about that. Tyrion Arnold. What people say, and despite what they say about Tyrion Arnold and how he basically is a liability when it comes to covering on defense, when he left, it was 2 big plays that was performed. And I think Robinson played pretty good, but then he got hit with a crucial, move. It was a double move on Jamar Chase's part. He kind of hit him with one side, and when he went to that side and tried to undercut it, he left, and he was wide open. I'd never seen nobody that wide open in the NFL, not in a long time. It was damn near 10 yards where he was open. He caught the ball. It was an automatic touchdown. And I said, yeah, Meek Robinson basically wasn't trusting his eyes. He tried to undercut a play and try to make a big play. But when you do that, sometimes you leave yourself out there vulnerable and you were left on an island. And when you did that, it was just really ridiculous. And there was some really bad plays that was going on, as far as the secondary. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of people are banged up. Not sure when DJ Reed will be coming back yet. Tyrion Arnold, he's going to be out. But the good news is they got a second opinion today, and he won't be out for long. But I still would be looking for a veteran or some type of help. Thank God that we ended up signing Trey Flowers, but I still feel like we need some more people to help solidify that defense, especially where we're going to, this up and coming Sunday night. So I definitely will be talking about that as well. When I seen like the stats on this, Jared Goff played okay. I still felt like they played a little lazy at times. I feel like the execution wasn't there. But then you got to give credit to a team and the Cincinnati Bengals who tried to definitely bring a pass rush, and they were stifling Jared Goff. So got to give credit where credit is due. You wasn't just gonna put on your jerseys and feel like you're the Lions. You was gonna go in there and dominate. Jared Goff had 258 yards, 19 to 23, and 3 touchdowns. Jake Browning was looking really bad, and I think we should have capitalized a little bit more off some of those picks. He had 251 yards, 26 of 40, 3 touchdowns, and he had 3 picks. Some of those went back for scores, but I wanted them to use that to execute and, like just blow the game wide open. That didn't happen. I like the fact that David Montgomery was the hometown kid. He came in, he looked sharp, and he went there and just executed the plan. He got a touchdown off passing, and then he ran one in for a touchdown. Was really happy for him and his reunion at home, him and Derek Burns. Amon St. Brown had 8 receptions, 100 yards. Jamar Chase had 110 yards on 6 receptions and 2 touchdowns as well. That final score was 37-24, and we're moving on and we're heading to Kansas City. This was another good game. This was the Sunday night game with the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. I think I need an apology for my co-host too, because I was telling them I think that New England's going to be better than what they was giving them credit for at first. I know that the defense was clicking, but the offense is finally starting to step up, and the offense looked terrible at the beginning of the season. I seen some games and I said, "Oh, it might be a little worse than what I expected," but I couldn't back up off those words because I already said it, and I'm just glad that it's starting to materialize. If they don't make any mental mistakes and do any hiccups, I still feel like this team can possibly win 9, maybe 10 games. Drake May had 273 yards, 23 of 30. Stephon Diggs, when I tell you Stephon Diggs balled out this game, I felt like he took this game personal. He was such a phenomenal player with the Buffalo Bills. And when he left, it was on kind of nasty terms. And they were saying that they think that Josh Allen can do it without him. And Josh Allen looked good. I think that was an MVP year for Josh Allen without him. But, unfortunately, he's always stepping in and he had to play, the gatekeeper of the AFC, Patrick Mahomes, and he fell short. But the 146 yards and the 10 receptions was really sharp for him. And I was really happy for Stephon Diggs in this game. Josh Allen had 253 yards. He was 22 of 31, 2 touchdowns, and he had a pick on the game. And he had 9 carries for 53 yards because they wasn't giving no yards up. And James Cook got stifled, man. You have that good team with Milton Williams, on their front. They got just really good defensive guys. They had Robert Spillane. So a lot of good guys. I don't think to get their credit where credit is due. And even Carlton Davis as a cornerback over there with Christian Gonzalez with New England. Just really good attributes to that team. And then now when you have a team that's clicking in the right direction with Josh McDaniels, who has a pretty good, IQ when it comes to offensive coordinators and just executing the game plan. And this is what you get. You get a really close game in Buffalo, and that final score was 23-20, and New England pulled off the upset victory in, Buffalo. This was the morning game, and it was a pretty tough one to really watch. But the one thing I could say, I definitely liked the efforts of Jordan Addison in this game because he got in trouble and he didn't play the first half, and he came back out the second half and ended up winning the game for them. Carson Wentz had 236 yards, 25 to 34, and he had a score. Dylan Gabriel looked really sharp in his game. He had 190 yards, 19 of 33, and 2 scores as well. And the running back, Quinshawn Judkins, stepped up. He had 23 carries for 110 yards. And Jordan Mason had 52 yards on 13 carries and a touchdown. But Justin Jefferson, I mean, what can you say about this dude? He had 7 receptions for 123 yards and looked every bit of the part. But like I said, Cleveland was up at one point. It was 14-17, and Carson Wentz gave them the drive at the end of the game to get Jordan Addison to pull off the victory, in London. And that final score was 21-17. This is a shocker right here, and I'm a little disappointed as far as the Baltimore Ravens because I expect better from them right now. I just wish that my man's Snoop McKinley was on the team right now. It's not looking too good for them right now. I wish they had a better, backup. No disrespect to Cooper Rush, that used to play for the Dallas Cowboys, but this game was inexcusable, and I was really embarrassed to see this just as a fan, in my opinion. CJ Stroud had 244 yards, 23 of 27, and 4 touchdowns in this game. Cooper Rush had 179 yards, 14 of 20, and 3 picks. Hunter Henry, Derrick Henry, correction, had 15 carries for 33 yards and a touchdown. And it just really looked bad in this game right here. That final score was 44-10. I understand they have a lot of injuries on defense. You know, you got guys that are out. Kyle Hamilton's out. You got one of the best defensive ends or defensive front players are out. Calvinoy came back, so it was some people who was there, but all in all, man, we understand that, when you don't have Lamar Jackson, man, it's definitely a different ball game, but you expect better from that organization. I even seen people booing, John Harbaugh, which I feel like's kind of unnecessary, but still, I know they were at Baltimore and they felt embarrassed because that final score was 44-10. When we beat them, it seemed like after that they've been on the downtrend, but it definitely didn't help when they played Kansas City. And then, Lamar Jackson hurt his hamstring. So he's going to be out for like maybe another 3 games. And it's a disaster right now over there. A team that we had aspirations for to always be one of the teams who's competing at the end might possibly not even have a chance this season. This game right here, I didn't think was going to be that good, and it surprised me. This was the New York Giants versus the New Orleans Saints. It was definitely a better game than I thought. Spencer Rattler looked pretty sharp in the game. 225 yards, 21 to 31 passing, and a touchdown. And the kid Rashid Shaheed had 114 yards, 4 receptions, and a score. Jackson Dart just basically had some of the growing pains in this game with the G-Man. He had 202 yards, 26 of 40, 2 touchdowns, and 2 costly picks in this game. And that final score was 26-14. New Orleans had 26, Giants had 14, and you had an on-4 team. Now it's 1-4. Now, where that being said, and that team is basically one of the teams who was still winless. This was a good one right here. This was one for the ages. Denver Broncos versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The battle of one of the undefeated teams. I'm saying that right now because I want you to know what happened in this game. Bo Nix looked pretty good. He had 242 yards, 24 of 39. He had a touchdown. Jalen Hurts looked not bad as well. 280 yards, 23 of 38, and 2 scores as well. Saquon Barkley had 6 carries and 30 yards. That was the shocker in this game, looking at the stats. J.K. Dobbins, on the other hand, had 20 carries, 79 yards, and a score. One of the people who surprised me in this game as well was Cortland Sutton. He looked pretty sharp in this game. You got 2 good, defenders over there, cornerbacks, with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They just couldn't stop him, man. He'll body them and kind of box them out and was catching big passes. He had 8 receptions, 99 yards. But then and again, Devontae Smith had a good game with 8 receptions and 114 yards as well. But Nick Benito, he looked really good, the linebacker with the 2.5 sacks. And I've been keeping an eye on him because it seemed like his name's been coming up the last few weeks. They have a really stout defense over there, and you have a good Sean Payton coach team with Bo Nix. They're going to be a team to watch for. At first I was thinking maybe, we're going to have Los Angeles Chargers be in the driver's seat of that division. That division's still wide open, but I just think Denver's a little better because it was another hiccup on Justin Herbert's part this week. That final score was 21-17, and Denver Broncos beat the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. So you had the Bills lose, and then the Eagles lost. We're in week 5, and there's no undefeated teams right now. So that was phenomenal to see what happened. Dallas Cowboys versus the Jets. Dak Prescott's been looking sharp lately, guys. Got to give him credit where credit is due. He had 237 yards, 18 to 29 with 4 touchdowns. Justin Fields had 283 yards, 32 of 46, and 2 touchdowns as well. Javonte Williams was really good on the ground, 16 carries, 135 yards, and a touchdown. And Brace Hall had 113 yards on 14 carries as well. This was a pretty good game, and I think what closed it out was, George Pickens playing really big ball right now in the absence of CD Lamb. But it was really a contest where the Jets had to try to crawl back in it, but it was a little too late because the Dallas Cowboys already dominated, definitely when it came to offense. And that final score was 37-22. Okay, this was the one I was really concerned with right here because now people are saying you might as well just get rid of Geno Smith and try to get Shedeur Sanders and the Raiders. This is what people have been saying as far as rumors and the talking heads. Geno Smith had 9 interceptions, altogether. I think he leads the league in interceptions, probably more now, but I know for sure he had 9 interceptions and he was looking really bad, like he couldn't even pinpoint to where to throw the ball at. And it seemed like at sometimes he was throwing the ball right to the competition. He had 228 yards, 25 to 36, and 2 interceptions. Daniel Jones just keep doing what he's doing, man. He had 212 yards, 20 of 29 and 2 touchdowns. He was clean on the day. But that being said, Jonathan Taylor had 17 carries, 66 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And this team's going to go as, far as Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor can take them and that pretty good young defense. That final score was 40-6. And the Raiders look like the same old Raiders still, unfortunately. Miami Dolphins versus the Carolina Panthers. I've been looking on my phone for a while now, and I'm still surprised that Mike McDaniel still have a job. They don't play with any efforts. Then you lost Tyreek Hill too, so it's just not really no sense of urgency over there. Like they just don't care. They got some good pieces too over there, and Bradley Chubb, who's a good defensive end, and Jalen Phillips, and it's guys to watch out for if they do decide to, get rid of Mike McDaniels or, do like a sell when it comes to the trade deadline. Tua Tagovailoa didn't do really that bad, and I feel bad, to say how bad this team is and how them, just sinking in this sinkhole right now. He had 256 yards, 27 to 36, and he had 3 touchdowns. And Jalen Waddle had a haymaker that I thought that was going to win the game. He had 6 receptions, 110 yards, and a score. The problem was they played slightly better on the other end. Bryce Young didn't really have a super good performance, but he played decent enough for them to win. 198 yards, 19 of 32 touchdowns. He had a pick on the day. But the man of the hour was the running back that used to be with the Dallas Cowboys, Rico Dowdle. He had 206 yards on 23 carries and a touchdown. He was running and at least getting 6-7 yards per carry. So, yeah, that was a really exciting performance. That final score was, if I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins was up like a really big score, and they ended up losing 27-24. The Buccaneers versus the Seahawks. Man, this was a good one, too. This was another one for the ages. Sam Darnold and Baker showed out. They both came from that Carolina Panthers situation where I felt like the Jets didn't have no need for Sam Darnold, and they put him over there in Carolina. And then, you had the same situation happen with Baker Mayfield. So you had two guys in the top three picks of the draft. I believe Baker was number one and Sam Darnold was number three in the draft that they had. And this was a really good battle right here. It showed that their draft, stock was definitely in their draft investment was worth it. Sam Darnold had 341 yards, 28 to 34, four touchdowns. He had a pick on the day. Baker Mayfield had 379 yards, 29 to 33, and two scores as well. Rashad White played good in this one. He didn't have a lot of yards. He had 14 carries, 41 yards, but he had two touchdowns as well. Jackson Smith and Jigba had 132 yards, eight receptions, and a touchdown. And the other Ohio State native, Amika Ibuka, had seven receptions, 163 yards, and a touchdown. So, yeah, it was the battle of the Ohio State wide receivers, and they lit up the scoreboard. It looked really good. Had a good time watching this game, and it was highly enjoyable. That final score was when Seattle scored and they took the lead, and it was basically 31 to 35. I said, yeah, it's still too much time on the clock for Baker, man. He's been making a habit out of this. They had one loss under their belt, in a close game, but still, when it came down to it, Baker right now, to me, is the leading MVP candidate in the NFL. I mean, you can argue with me if you have any, disagreements. You can make it and put it in your comments how you feel about this. But I'm still saying this, and I know a lot of people probably back me on this when I say Baker Mayfield for the MVP right now. That final score, that 38 to 35, and him making another comeback victory and putting that team on his shoulders was definitely excited to watch. That was a really good game. The Titans and the Cardinals game was pretty rough, man, and that's what I'm looking at right now. It's like Kyler Murray, man. Where else can he go? You put the team and you built the team around him and his attributes and what he can bring to the table, but it's just not materializing right now. You guys, come on, man. What we gonna do? Are we going to keep him, or are we going to try to go for another taller, bigger, stout quarterback in the draft? Luckily, him and Marvin Harrison Jr. are starting to get a connection, but still wasn't enough for them to pull this one out right here. Kyler Murray had 220 yards, 23 of 31. And the crazy part was, you had Amari DeMarcado, who had three carries and 81 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. had four receptions, 98 yards. Cam Ward had 265 yards, 21 to 39. He had an interception, but he looked pretty sharp for most part of the game. And Tony Pollard had 14 carries, 67 yards, and a score. Them having Calvin Ridley back definitely was an X factor, man. You got to give credit where credit is due. He had five receptions, 131 yards. Like I said, this was one of the games I thought wasn't going to be that good, but another team who was 0-4, who was winless and didn't have a win under them, ended up pulling off another victory today. That final score was 22-21, and Tennessee Titans pulled off the upset against the Cardinals. This game wasn't really good at all to me. I thought that it was going to be better efforts with the Chargers, but the Chargers just didn't look the part. They didn't look like they did the first three games of the season. Got to give credit where credit is due. The Washington Commanders defense stepped up in a, really fearsome way. And then getting Jaden Daniels back definitely helped the cause. Jaden Daniels had 231 yards, 15 of 26. He had a touchdown, but he didn't do all the damage. The person who did the damage was their late round pick. If I'm not mistaken, he's like a fifth, sixth round draft pick, Ja'Cory Crosby Merritt. You're going to have to remember that name. I know it's kind of funky, but Ja'Cory Crochet Merritt. This gentleman had 111 yards from 14 carries and two touchdowns. And this was the reason why they got rid of Brian Robinson in the first place. And I'm starting to look at it and feel like it's definitely escalating. And it took place on paper right now. At first, I was like, I don't see the means of it, but then you get rid of a guy who's going to be a little bit more expensive. You get a younger guy with a late round draft pick, and you could keep him for like 4 years before you finally make a decision on what you're going to do with him. So, yeah, that was a huge performance. And Debo Samuels had 96 yards, 8 receptions, and a touchdown. I just felt like Justin Herbert looked really funky this game. 166 yards, 22 of 29, a touchdown, and an interception. And they're definitely looking nowhere near what they looked at the beginning of the season, especially in the first, games I told you about, the first 3 games, and how sharp they were and how good they were as far as the execution goes. That final score was 27-10. We had a Monday night game too, which I was really surprised with, but it was a really good game. This was a game that I believe that solidified, Trevor Lawrence in a nutshell, because I was looking at him and I said, I don't think he's playing up to the caliber that we expected. We all looked at him as being one of the, prodigies of football. We looked at him like how we looked at Andrew Luck and some of the bigger name quarterbacks like the Peyton Mannings and some of the guys who really were big names when it came to college, or we thought that they were going to go to the pros and just make a stamp on the NFL and just come out of nowhere and just, proceed with dominance. That didn't happen for Trevor Lawrence. And at one point, they were calling them the Detroit Lions of the AFC. That's how much respect that people had in them. And they took a step back. I believe for the most part, it was because a lot of the coaching staff and the things that was going on over there, maybe that's just my opinion, but I feel like there's a lot of facts to that too, as well, because they played much better now. And I want to talk about this game because Liam Cohen definitely stepped up their game. He had those guys believing. And one of the key matchups is when they beat the San Francisco 49ers. That let me know that they were for real. Patrick Mahomes had 318 yards, 29 to 41, a touchdown, and an interception. When I say costly interception, that was definitely costly because that was a pick six. This is the second time I've seen in a Patrick Mahomes career that he had a pick six. The first time I seen it was, of course, when he played the Detroit Lions, with Brian Branch. And to see him get a pick six up in the game was huge. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was from Devin Lloyd, Devon Lloyd. He had 6 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown as well. Trevor Lawrence, I said he had the 221 yards, 18-25 touchdown, and a pick. He had 54 yards on 10 carries, and he had 2 touchdowns as well. So yeah, he looked really sharp, and it was crazy too because to have that comeback victory against Kansas City and the big play of my man's Travis Hunter, it was actually a really good game. Really, game that I didn't expect to go down and be as good as it was. Like I said, Liam Cohen got those guys over there believing. They looked the part, man. They beat 2 respectable teams in the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs fall down to 2-3, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4-1. That final score was 31-28. I want to talk about the predictions now when it comes to the college, and I want to give my pros predictions as well. I'm hoping it's a good week in college, you guys. On Friday, South Florida, number 24, South Florida versus North Texas. I'm going to take South Florida, and I'll take the points in this one in 1.5. Number 15, Michigan versus USC. I'm going to go with Michigan. They got USC by 2.5. Wow, that's big. I'll take Michigan, and I'll take those 2.5 points for Michigan. Number 1, Ohio State versus number 17, Illinois. I'm going to take Ohio State, and I'm going to take the 14.5. Alabama, number 8, Alabama versus number 14, Missouri. I'll take Alabama, and I'll take the points with the 2.5. Pitt versus Florida State, number 25, Florida State. I'll go with Florida State, and I'll take the under on the 10.5. Washington State versus number 4, Ole Miss. I'm going with Ole Miss, and I'm taking the 32.5. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm taking that. Number 7, Indiana versus number 3, Oregon. I'll take Oregon at home, and I'll take the 7.5. Number 6, Oklahoma versus Texas. I'm going to take Oklahoma, and I'm going to take the points that they're giving Texas, which is 1.5. I'm surprised with that, but they have Texas winning that one. Virginia Tech versus number 13, Georgia Tech. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech, and I'm going to take the 14.5. North Carolina State versus Notre Dame. I'm going to take number 16, Notre Dame, and I'm going to take the 21.5 points with them at home. Number 22, Iowa State versus Colorado. I'll take Iowa State in the 2.5 points. Arkansas versus number 12, Tennessee. I'll take Tennessee, and I'll take that 12.5 as well. Florida versus Texas A&M. Number 5, Texas A&M. I'm going to give it to Texas A&M, and I'll say I'll take the 7.5 points as well at home. They're a pretty sound team. Kansas versus number 9, Texas Tech. I'm going to take Texas Tech in the 13.5. Number 10, Georgia versus Auburn. I'll take Georgia in the 3.5 points on the road. South Carolina versus number 11, LSU. I'll take LSU at home, and I'll take the 9.5. Number 18, BYU versus Arizona. I'm going to take BYU, and I'll take the 1.5 points. Number 21, Arizona State versus Utah. I'm going with the upset on this one because I've been too clean on this one right now. I'm going to take Utah, and I'm going to take that 6.5 for Utah. Yeah, that was too clean. I couldn't have a clean slate. It's going to be an upset somewhere. And if it got to be an upset, that's the game. We're into week 6 now to close out the show. Man, this Thursday night game, not so good. Eagles versus Giants. I'm going to give it to the Eagles, and I'll give them the 6.5 on the roll. Patriots versus the Saints. I'm going to take the Patriots. I'll take a 3.5 because the Saints are really tough at home. The Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs. They got the Chiefs at 2.5. I'm going to take the Lions, and I'll take the 2.5 on that one with the Lions winning. Even though I still feel like this is going to be a tough one at home, and with us not having those corners might be a problem. So that one can go anyway. I'm just saying right now, I might change my mind on Wednesday. So let's just keep it at that right now. The Denver Broncos versus the Jets. I got the Denver Broncos in the 7.5. Cleveland Browns versus the Steelers. I'm going to take the Steelers at home with the 5.5. And I know that seemed low, but then when it comes to the AFC North, that's just really good, stiff competition. So, yeah, I'm going to definitely keep that 5.5. Los Angeles Chargers versus the Dolphins. I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers in the 4.5 points because I don't really see nothing with the Dolphins. That can change, any given Sunday. The Los Angeles Rams versus the Ravens. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams in the 7.5 points. I still think that's not enough after losing 44-10 to the Texans. We have the Arizona Cardinals versus the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to go with Indiana Jones and the Colts in the 6.5. Seattle Seahawks versus Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going with the Jags on this one at home, and I got them, and I'll take the 1.5 points because that's going to be a close one. But I just think Trevor Lawrence at home and the Jaguars in general are a hard team to beat right now. Definitely what they did on Monday night, I can't look away from that. I'm going to go with the Jaguars. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to go with Dallas, and I'm going to go over the 3.5, honestly. Tennessee Titans versus the Raiders. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans, and I'm going to take the 4.5 points because they had Las Vegas winning. I don't see it. The 49ers versus the Buccaneers. This is going to be a really good game. It's going to be one of them 4 o'clock late games during that Sunday window. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, and I will go with the 2.5 points. The Bengals versus the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, and I'll take the 14.5. Buffalo Bills versus Falcons. I feel like after the Sunday night contest that they're going to be having a chip on their shoulder and they're pissed. And I'm going to go with Buffalo, and I'll take the 3.5 points. And you have the Chicago Bears versus the Washington Commanders. I'm going to take this Commanders in the 4.5 points. That being said, I would like to say thank you all for chiming in. And if you have any questions or anything, I would like for you guys to even chime in and put more stuff in the box, down there and commentate and at least give me some, interaction on the show. Let me know what you think, and some of the things I'm saying. You might think I'm crazy, or you might just think that I bit off a little more than I can chew. But just hit me up, and then mention and hit up those comments. That's all I want to know, and just see if you guys are interacting and seeing who's all checking the show out. That being said, I would like to get into the ways that you can check me out too. And these are my social media networks that you can catch me on. Hewley, I'm Hoovy on Instagram. For the most part, I put up reels and different things of that nature for you guys and promos that we advertise on the Guru's Perspective and the Guru Sports Section. I appreciate you guys for chiming in and showing support. And on Facebook, I'm Sports Guru to you. I put up the late breaking news and the scores of NFL, NBA, etc. And then on TikTok, I like to say I appreciate you guys from always showing your love and support. It definitely don't go unnoticed. My name on there is Hugh.Lee6. I would like to say thank you all for chiming in. Have a blessed day. And until the next episode, see you next Tuesday.